And welcome to Hero Power. I'm your host, Avantes. This is episode 173. And as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Zeroshio.
What is up, gang?
And Matt at Arms.
It's Wednesday, my dudes.
It is. It is Wednesday. And glad to be here. We've got the last part of our card review. We're going to hit Warlock, Warrior, and the neutral cards tonight. And I'm excited about it because these are two of the classes I've been having some fun with.
Mm-hmm.
So, but before we get into all of that, we do have just a little bit of news to talk about this week.
Well, first off, before we get into news, iTunes reviews. We don't have any iTunes reviews. We haven't had any in a while. So if you have not reviewed us on iTunes, it definitely helps us out. But I checked today, and we've actually broken into 9th slot when searched for Hearthstone. Ooh. So must be doing something right if we're not getting reviews and still going up the ranks. So help us out with those reviews and see if we can push us up further up. That would be awesome.
We don't have any reviews by May 1st. Any new reviews by May 1st, Zeroshio will shave his beard. All right, moving on.
I've done it once. I'll do it again.
You don't want that, trust me. All right.
No, I am ugly. This covers up all that ugly.
So.
Not doing a good job.
See?
All right, so into the news. Like I said, we don't have a whole lot, but this week, or actually today even, launched the Nobelgarden event. This is Hearthstone's kind of Easter event. When you log in, you will receive 2 free golden Mechano eggs and 2 free packs of Boomsday Project. Interesting. Man at Arms, thoughts?
Yeah, great, cool. That's pretty sweet. I actually kept my golden Mechano eggs and dusted my normal ones because they gave us 2 this time as opposed to just 1 random one.
Yeah, and the golden Mechano eggs look sweet, and when those dragons pop out of there, they're pretty good animation. I kept mine as well. I'm making it a point to keep a lot of my goldens now because they're the art on that they've been putting in those are so much better than the Goldens from like when they first came out in Axe and those early sets. They do a really good job with the artwork, and I'm really impressed.
I also kept my golden ones thus far. We'll see if they survive the launch of the next set. But it's usually what happens is I build up all my goldens in a 3 or 4 month period, and then when a new set comes out, I dust them all to make new cards. So, all right. So, yeah, make sure you log in on any servers you play on and any Smurf accounts you might have. Collect all those packs.
Yeah, you got until like Sunday, I believe. I think it goes away with the Brawl.
Yeah. So, all right. Also, choose your champion for the 2019 HCT World Championships is now live, and you only have a few days. You have until April the 24th, so that is a week from today. You have 7 days to log into your account on battle.net and choose your champion.
The tournament starts April the 25th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Coverage for that starts April 25th. So, yeah, I'm really excited for choose your champion as well as seeing this tournament because if you guys don't know, we have 2 former guests of the show, 3 if you count casters, going to be at this event. We have Bloody Face and Language Hacker. So I'm definitely putting my vote in Bloody Face out of loyalty. Plus, I really like his list, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. And furthermore, Nathan, that's Admiral Zamora, will be one of the casters, presumably, and he's also been on the show.
Yeah, so make sure you tune in. Now, there's also another reason to tune in, right, Matt?
Yeah, this time they are actually doing Twitch drops. So actually, the tournament starts on the evening of the 24th. Actually, I was looking at it. It's at 7 p.m. at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So it's literally going to start 10 a.m. our time or 10 p.m. our time. But you will be everyone who watches for more than 4 hours will get a free Rise of Shadows pack, and every hour they're going to give away 1,500 classic card packs to people who are currently viewing. So if you are on the East Coast like me, set up your laptop to stream the tournament overnight, and you should be doing pretty good.
That's right.
Stream it overnight because it's not going to.
Yeah.
What time does it start?
It starts 10 p.m. Eastern time.
And goes until 3 a.m. Pacific, which would be like about
6 a.m.
7 a.m. 7, yeah,
That's
6 a.m.
right.
Yeah.
I forgot it's actually over in Asia Pacific, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you don't get these. You don't get this loot or these chance for drops by watching the VODs.
Yeah.
But
So
if
you just have to make sure you turn it, like Matt said, turn it on before you go to bed. Turn off your monitor or whatever, and just let it run overnight to collect the packs.
One thing to know is if you have the stream on mute, at one point Twitch will disable it and you won't get any drops. So I always turn the sound really low so when it comes out of my headphones it doesn't bother anybody in the house. But make sure the sound is on your Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Now that we've got that out of the way and you can go choose your champion, what champion or whom should you choose? Well, one way to find out is by knowing what each champion is playing. And the HCT World Championship deck lists were just released by Invin Global on their website. And Matt at Arms, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, this tournament looks like it's kind of going to be revolving around two classes, which is going to be Warrior, which is there's some bomb. China's bringing Bomb Warrior for some reason. Everybody else is bringing Control Warrior. The Waggle Pick Rogue is everywhere. I think everybody's bringing it except for I think everybody is bringing a Rogue with Waggle Pick. It's just is it more tempo? Is it more aggro, or is it more Miracle? Also, you're seeing a lot of Token Druid, which no surprise, Token Druid is the most popular deck in the format, and the zoo and the deck of choice for Warlock is a Zoo. You're also seeing some Archive, some Summoner Mage, and some mid-range Hunter. So it's going to be an interesting tournament, and there is one Priest. Priest isn't dead.
There is one person not bringing Rogue, and they opted instead to bring Paladin. Roger has chosen not to bring Rogue at all. He's actually bringing Warrior, Mage, Hunter, and Paladin. And his Paladin's really interesting. It's kind of a control style Paladin. It could be good. I'm not sure. I mean, looking at the lists, I still like Bloodyface. Bloodyface and Language Hacker have good lists, and I really think they'll both do well. We'll leave the lists in our show notes, so feel free to check us out over at HeroPowerHS.com. Click on the website there in the show notes, and we'll have the link for you there.
I will say, looking over these lists, the Warlock decks minus the what are they? Sea Giants. Minus the Sea Giants, most expensive card in the deck is 3. So those are some really fast decks.
They're either bringing or topping out at Rafam or Leroy. A lot of them.
Yeah.
So be interesting to see. Can't wait for this tournament. Been looking forward to this all year, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, one thing I do want to kind of key everybody in on is there are a few people bringing Shaman, and they're bringing kind of more of a control-y, mid-range to control Shaman. And it looks like it might steal some wins. I think it's something that the other players probably aren't planning for. And the only person I think actually might really be good against the Shaman is actually Roger with that Paladin.
Yeah, I like the shaman list a lot. I've seen a few of them, and I think it's pretty strong. And I think my pick with that shaman is going to be Language Hacker.
Bringing the Shutterwalk, yeah.
Yep.
I like it. So I was going to say the same thing. Looking at the shaman decks, you have some people like Just Saying, who is running a very similar list without Shutterwalk, but I think I like the inclusion of Shutterwalk in the shaman lists. So.
He's only bringing one. Actually, I just noticed Language Hacker is only one bringing one version of Hagatha.
Yes.
So
yeah,
bringing the hero.
Oh wow!
So that's it. All right, cool.
Yep. So all right, that brings us to this week's Tavern Brawl, which is Dr. Boom's Ignoble Garden. Dr. Boom is tired of eggs and bunnies. Choose a class and play with the treats he's placed in your deck. So have you guys had a chance to play this yet, Zeroshio?
Yes, I have, and I tell you, I wish I would have thought of this and made, done for my family, especially if you have family, especially young ones that love Hearthstone. Instead of doing Easter eggs for Easter, do little bombs. Take your little eggs and paint them up like little bombs. This is the cutest thing ever. Basically, it's kind of like a random deck based on whatever class. It gives you a deck, and then kind of scattered throughout your deck, and then you'll start on the board with a bomb. And then scattered through your deck are different variations of bombs. Some of them make more bombs. Some of them are classic bombs that do 1 to 4 damage to a random target. Some of them are taunt that summon. The taunts summon more bombs, and some of them do like 5 damage to the whole board. And then there's one that actually summons a random legendary with Rush. So it's really fun. A little bit of RNG when it comes to the bombs, but I really enjoyed it. I played about 4 or 5 games with it. It's just a fun little lighthearted themed tavern brawl, and I think that the seasonal celebrations for Easter or other holidays, this is a perfect place for tavern brawl, and I'm glad they're utilizing it this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of topped out on all my RNG this week for the brawl because my second game, I had the bomb that created 3 other boombots. And then I top decked Mimron's head. I dropped Mimron's head. They didn't remove anything. All the bombs exploded in their face, and I had a Mega Wind Fury minion 4/8 on turn 6. It was glorious. I just put the phone down. I didn't even open the pack yet. I'm like, that's it. I can't top my RNG this week. This is it.
So. I had the bomb that summons a random legendary minion with chart or with Rush, and I got Sneed's old Shredder out of the bomb, and just happened to have top decked Echo of Medivh.
Oh,
so I put one back in I put another Sneed's in my hand, played it out the next turn. Then turn after that, I drew a Sneed's out of my deck. So yeah, it was Sneed's for everyone. It was so much
all
fun.
The way down.
And one thing to note: this is a wild tavern brawl. So you don't have to build a deck, but you can get cards from every set, all your collection in this brawl, which makes it to me more fun. When they do the random ones that are very random, but they limit you to standard, it kind of. I don't know. I don't like it as much.
Yeah. All right. Anybody have anything else they want to add before we move into the last 3 of our Rise of Shadows reviews?
I do.
Okay,
go ahead. No, you go first.
All right. I want to give a huge shout out to Doug and Dyrus Bear. He's hosting a tavern here, or not even, or just a tavern or a event right now. I wasn't able to make it because I had other things going on today here in Detroit. But he is doing a memorial fireside for Lyondon. Lyondon, was a player that I knew through the THL and through local firesides. He was one of the most positive guys I've ever met. I've ever heard. I've ever seen. I never met him personally, but he was unfortunately taken from us like very suddenly and very quickly. So if you want to, and this fireside's in his memory and his honor, and there's a fundraiser for for some charity that I know he was involved in or was part of. If you want to do that, go to PFG Firesides on Facebook or look up Direst Bear on Twitter. Get a hold of him, and he will probably get you the information. If you want to donate to that, please do, because it's a great event. I'm sad I missed it, but it's one of those things where it's a local guy, and yeah, kind of a tragic situation.
And we will put the donation link to it's the extralife.org.
Yeah, that's it.
Donation link for Direst Bear in our show notes. So I had the pleasure of playing with and against Lion Den and THL. He was nothing but a consummate professional and just a really good guy. And he was taken suddenly; it was not expected, and we feel for his family and their loss, and of course the community, because it's a huge loss. He was close with everybody. Just like I said, just a good guy. So please, if you can, go to HeroPowerHS.com, check episode, what are we, 173 this week, and the link will be in there, and please consider donating, just even if it's just $1, just anything that you can help.
As you guys were talking about it, I just made it my donation. So on
Awesome.
behalf of the podcast, Doug, you're doing a great job. We're thinking about you, buddy. So every little bit helps, guys. All right. That will bring us to our time for the last third of our card review for Rise of Shadows. So I'm excited to get into this and get it knocked out, because that means we get to start playing decks next week, guys.
I can't wait.
Yeah, decks like what? Silence Priest?
Hey, I like Silence Priest. Hey,
yeah,
that's a tempo deck.
And we get to play Darkest Hour Warlock and Wild. I mean, come on.
No. I'll quit the show.
That deck is horrible. I've seen VODs of that. That's just mean.
I played it last night. It was a lot of fun.
I do want to say to the one member of our community in our Hero Power patron Discord, you know who you are. If you want to be part of it and find out, you can go to Discord or patreon.com/Hero Power and join us up. But somebody said I'm a cheater for playing Silence Priest, and I say, so what?
Fair enough. All right. So Matt, you wanted to do Warlock, correct?
Yeah, I volunteered to do Warlock because it's my favorite class, and I love Warlock. All right, first one up, Arch Villain Rafam, the big bad of the set. He's a 7-mana, 7/8 with Taunt. Battle Cry, replace your hand and your deck with legendary minions. I underrated this card. I gave it a 3. I think this card is actually really solid, really strong. It probably should be a 4. In fact, it's showing up in Zoo just to kind of counter the Control Warrior matchup a little bit is kind of awesome. In a slower Warlock, when you just kind of have removal you're not using or other cards that aren't really effective in the matchup, swapping those out for some major stuff for some legendaries, just some big bodies that you can beat people's face in with is pretty awesome. And yeah, I love this card. I should have crafted it gold.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody, we did our reviews before the set actually came out. So these are first impressions, and we haven't gone back and changed our numbers. I gave it also a 3, and I do think it is a 3. It is a solid inclusion. Some lists are taking it out for, just more fuel for the Zoo list, though I think it is very good. I did craft this in Golden. So far, it's the only golden craft I've done so far. It's just too much value in golden. But I put it in zoo, and it's good. I like it.
So I also gave this a 3. And after having seen it played, I do feel like it is a solid 3. As you know, Zeroshio just mentioned, it's a good card, but I mean, so much RNG replacing everything with just random legendaries. You know, you could replace you could accidentally replace something good with like Cho. So I'm gonna leave it at a 3 and call it done.
Don't let Wild Hobbs hear you, because Cho is good.
There you go. All right. Next one up, I'll try to stay PG with this name. The other legendary, Fell Lord Betrug. It's an 8 mana 5/7. Whenever you draw a minion, summon a copy with Rush. It dies at the end of the turn. I opened this one. I really loved playing with it in the first week. Unfortunately, it's not so much playable now. I gave it a 2. I think there's a future for this card. I'm not sure what it is. And in Wild, I think this card could be kind of bonkers.
I gave it a 1. I think it pops up in Trollden videos. That's about it.
I also gave this card a 2. And I may actually raise its rating just because of Matt at Arms' joke just now. I didn't think about it until he said it, but it cracked me up, and I might raise its rating just on its non-PG name. So, all right, moving on.
All right, next one up. 6. We're on the epics now. 6 mana spell, Darkest Hour. Destroy all friendly minions. For each one, summon a random minion from your deck. I was kind of high on this card. I was kind of middling on this card. I gave it a 3. I think it's one of those cards that really has a future, especially with more cards in the set. What this card is doing in Wild is making a completely disgusting deck that makes Big Priest look fair, especially with what they have there, the Blood Bloom. So yeah, I gave it a 3. I think right now it's a 1, but But I think in the future, I think it's definitely a 3.
Yeah, in standard, and that's what I base my ratings off of. It's a 1. There just aren't enough tools to abuse this card. Maybe in the future with future sets something comes up, but by the time you play this, you've probably already drawn or have needed those quality minions you want to pull out. Plus, can you have a board at that point? So I'm not convinced that this card will be good in standard. Yeah, I gave it a 1.
I gave this card a 2, but I did build this deck in Wild last night, and I played it a few games. And
you're a horrible person.
Yes, I am, and it was a lot of fun. But like Matt said, this deck either loses really quickly or it wins absolutely spectacularly. Like, I think I did 24 points of damage in one turn with this card last night. Because you fill your board with imps, you had Darkest Hour, and then you get 2 charging dinosaurs, you get 2 charging, what's the demon? 5/7? Doomguards. And you hit end turn and finish off with a Ragnaros Blast to the face. It doesn't get much more fun than that.
All right. Next one up, 10 Jumbo Imp, 10 mana, 8/8, costs 1 less for a friendly demon that died while this is in your hand. This card reminds me a lot of Night of the Wild. Night of the Wild was really bad. This card is probably just as bad, if not worse, because it's just limited to demons. I gave this card a 1.
I gave it a 2. I think there are some fringe cases where you can put this in place of something like a Sea Giant, especially in kind of a flood, maybe some kind of zoo. The problem is you have to have this in your hand, which means it's wasting a space in your hand in a deck that usually doesn't have a lot of card draw other than the hero power. So I'm not convinced it's going to be very good. I did give it a 2, though. I think it can be in some decks.
I actually gave this one a 3 because I was thinking a version of Demon Aggro where you have the Fail Circle that summons 4 imps. You have the other card that fill both sides of the board with imps. I forget the name of that one. But there are
Mad
options.
Summoner.
Yeah, Mad Summoner, where you can just fill the board with imps, kill them all, drop this guy for like 2 mana, and so I gave this card a 3.
All right, next one up. My favorite card of the set pre-release: 2 mana, Plot Twist. Shuffle your deck hand into your deck. Draw that many cards. I played a lot with this card first week or so, and I love this card a lot. I think it has a ton of potential. Just the ability to kind of remulligan your hand, not to mention things you can do with Betrug and like Dollmaster Dorian and another card further down that we can talk about. That we will talk about. This card is awesome. I enjoyed the heck out of it. But I think I gave it a 4. I probably think it's going to fall out of favor in the meta right now, but I think it will come back at some point.
I also gave it a 4, and as a point, a large majority of our community gave it a 4, and one person even gave it a 5. So it was a very popular card in our community. Now, I don't think it has reached the expectations people were wanting to or expecting it to. I think the card itself is good, but the meta is just not revolved around it. Expect this card to be exploited, especially later this year, maybe even during this current rotation, during this current set when people start playing with the meta and figuring out things. Mm-hmm. There's something with this card that can be broken. I don't think it's been found yet.
We've already had our mulligan. But how about a second mulligan, sir? Why,
For 2
yes,
mana.
it is time for second mulligan, Pippin. I love this card. I love this card a lot. Again, this is one of the cards I'm running in Darkest Hour and Wild just to go get the tools I need. But that's what this card is for. It is made to cycle through your deck and get what you need. It's fantastic support tool, and I gave it a 4.
All right, next one up. Eager Underling, 4 mana, 2/2. Death Rattle, give 2 of random friendly minions +2/+2. I didn't even think this card would be good in Zoo, and I've kind of proven to be right. It hasn't shown up anywhere. I gave it a 1. I think the fact that, yeah, you think Fungalmancer, but this has to die for the Fungalmancer effect, and you kind of lose the 2/2 body that came with Fungalmancer as well.
Yeah, I gave it a 1. I mean, people will say that there's ways to sacrifice stuff, but on a 4 mana minion, there's not a lot of room, in those early games. You're not doing that until turn 6 or 7, and by then you want to win the game with Zeus. So, no, I think this is a bad card.
I gave this a 2. I am right there with what Matt said. It's a 4 mana 2/2 body, which is not good, and then you don't get the bonus until it dies, so it gives the opponent the opportunity to clear the board and make this guy completely worthless. I gave it a 2.
All right, next one up, last rare, Inferno, 3 mana, give your demons +1 attack, deal 1 damage to enemy minions. I think this card is actually solid. I don't think it goes in a current version of Zoo. I think it kind of is looking for a more mid-range deck. I gave it a 4. I probably, with now Platter playing it, probably push it down to a 2. I think it would be fringe in a kind of anything right now. But I think it's a solid card.
Yeah, I gave it a 3. I think it's solid. It doesn't really have a place right now, but I think it will. And I think it will in the near future. When we start putting more demons in the Zoo deck, I think this one cuts in place.
Mm-hmm. So I gave this a 3. I was actually thinking about the Mad Summoner as well. It's a 9 mana combo, but fills your board with 2/2 or 2/1 demons and clears your opponent's side of the board. Yeah, it's expensive, but it may work. Who knows? But yeah, I gave this a 3.
Alrighty, next one up, Reform Scheme, 3 mana. summon summon 1/1 imp, upgrades each turn, which means it upgrades to up to 7 imps. I give this card a 1. I was, like I said, I was really down on the schemes, and I've actually kind of proven to be right outside of Hagatha's scheme, which is really strong. But I think this one is, yeah, it's not great. It goes in that Darkest Hour Warlock and Wild because you can do it for 3. But I think the fact that it also runs Fiendish Circle, which is the 4-mana version of this, which always does 4, I think that card's actually better than this. I gave it a 1.
Worst scheme ever. I gave it a 1.
No, Dr.
No.
Boom's.
Yeah,
Nope.
I think I agree.
I think this is worse than Dr. Boom's.
I think this is second worst scheme. But yes, it does work with that Darkest Hour combo. And it would work with the Darkest Hour combo in Standard as well. But like I've actually used this card and cast it 3 mana, got 5 imps, Darkest Hour, hit for a whole bunch of damage. So, I mean, the possibilities are there, but I agree this is probably the second worst scheme in the set. I gave it a 1.
All right, next one up. Evil Genius, 2-mana, 2/2, Battle Cry. Destroy a friendly minion. Add 2 random lackeys to your hand. I underrated this at a 2. I think this card's a solid 4 now. This card is integral in the current zoo list. I think the fact that I gave it a 2, I think I completely underrated lackeys. Lackeys are super strong. This card's awesome.
Yeah, I gave it a 3. It's really, really good in zoo, and it might even be a 4. It's super, super solid. The lackeys that you get complement that deck really, really well. I like it.
I gave Evil Genius a 3. There's possibilities here. It's a 2/2 body for 2 that you can kill something to trigger a good death rattle and get random lackey. So yeah, I like this. I like this card. I gave it a 3.
All right, last one for Warlock. Anarasi, Broodmother, 6-mana, 4/6, taunt. When you draw this minion, restore 4 health to your hero. I gave it a 2. I think it's reasonably good. I think the big thing is the fact that when you draw it, it heals you. It's really great with plot twist. I've used this plot twist this thing twice in my deck and actually get some strong healing out of it. I think it'll eventually fall out of anything control Warlock for better options, but I think it's a cool card now, and I gave it a 2. I think it's fringe for anything right now.
I gave it a 1. The one thing a lot of people aren't keen on is this gives your opponent information. Yeah. I've had a lot of people that tested out this card play against me, and they draw it, heal for 4, and at that point, I'm like, well, I know what that card is, so I know it's not an answer to whatever I put out. And if they pretty much dump a lot of cards in their hand where they don't have much of a hand left, and they have this card and I know it's there, then I can play around whatever they're going to do. So I just think it's bad because obviously I'm going to know a 4/6 taunt's going to drop soon, so I can save removal or silence or something like that. I think this is bad.
I gave it a 3, and as much as I've seen it played, I feel like my 3 is justified. Like Matt said, I've seen this card get drawn, heal for 4, plot twist back into the deck, drawn again, heal for 4, plot twist it back into the deck a second time, drawn, heal for 4. It's annoying when they get 8 to 12 to 16 points of free healing if they're running 2 in the deck. It's just more work you have to do. It's a 6-mana 4/6 taunt. That's just okay. It's not great stats, but yeah, I feel like it's better. It's right there at average. I gave it a 3.
All right. On to so overall, what do you guys think of Warlock? What do you guys think how to do?
I was surprised how good Warlock is. I mean, obviously right now there's only really one predominant archetype for Warlock, but I think overall it's probably a solid 3. It's not quite breaking into tier 1 decks, but it's a solid tier 2 that can beat tier 1. I would like to see some more variation in deck types, and I think it will come. They just need some more time to innovate. We've only been in the set for a week, so obviously Zoo is a go-to anytime a new set comes out, and it's not disappointing.
I'd get behind that rating. I guess I would give it about a 3 as well. I mean, it'd be a low 3, almost a 2. Really, outside of Plot Twist, I feel like Plot Twist is the best card that Warlock got in this set, and everything else is just kind of meh. So yeah, I'd give it a 3.
Yeah, I'm kind of giving Warlock overall 2. They haven't really gotten a whole lot since the Mammoth, quite honestly. They've gotten a few cards, but a lot of the cards they do have now are just kind of pieces and parts to things that may or may not develop into good things again. And it's kind of hard to see my class kind of just resort to Zoo, but the fact that the hero power is OP, you'll always have Warlock in the meta at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so on to Warrior. So first up, we have the 7-mana 7/7 Blastmaster Boom. He is Battlecry, summon 2 1/1 Boom bots for each bomb in your opponent's deck. So this was one of the first cards I crafted. Built Bomb Warrior day 1 and do not regret it. I've had a blast playing this deck. And I mean, it's one of those, you're going to be putting bombs in the deck, so chances are you're going to get more than two boom bots anyway, unless you just really bad luck and they draw every one of the bombs before you play them, which is not a bad thing because you're still probably closer to winning. So I like this card a lot. I gave him a 4.
Yeah, I gave him a 4, and I played quite a bit of the Bomb Warrior, and I stand by a 4. It's a solid card. I almost crafted him in Golden, but I held it. I might still do it. We'll see where my dust is at. Very, very, very good card.
I gave this card a 3. I think it's solid. I think Bomb Warrior might be falling out of favor, at least in tournament setup. But on the ladder, I'm still seeing it everywhere, and I don't think it's the best Warrior deck. This card is really dependent on if you draw your bomb or if you draw your bomb cards, which a few games I've played of this deck, I've had issues with that. So like this, basically, I have a big War Golem sitting in my hand that does nothing otherwise. But I think this card's solid. And I think it really depends on if the bomb synergy is going to stick around, which it looks like it is.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, we have the Boom Reaver. 10 mana, 7/9, Battlecry. Summon a copy of a minion in your deck. Give it Rush. I gave this card a 2. I'm not really impressed with it thus far. In fact, I've not really seen it played outside of the Rise of Shadows pre-release Warrior deck. I haven't actually seen it out on the ladder very much. So I feel like my 2 is justified. That it's a 10 mana 7/9. Summon a copy of a random minion in your deck. You don't know which one it's going to be. So unless you're building around this card, which just seems bad, you just don't know. So I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I also gave it a 2. However, I really, really like this card. I just don't like it enough to put it into a deck. But when I get it as a choice off of my Dr. Boom hero power, I will likely take it depending on the state of my deck at the time. If I still have, say, a Dr. Boom in my deck, playing a 7/9 with Rush, because Dr. Boom gives Mex Rush, and it summons Blastmaster Boom, which is now as a 7/7 with Rush, that's pretty strong. So I do like the card in Discover mechanics, but to put it in a deck, I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I gave it a 3. I think it's solid. it's a great discover option. Maybe there'll be a deck for this in the future, as long as there's more big stuff printed. I saw a version of this that Fibonacci ran this and the Boom Ship and a bunch of other big stuff that I was really close to pulling the trigger on this guy, but yeah, I think he's a solid 3.
All right. That brings us up to our first epic, the Omega Devastator. It's a 4-mana, 4/5 battle cry. If you have 10 mana crystals, deal 10 damage to a minion. I gave this card a 4. I like this card a lot. And our community was really high on this card as well. This card has done a lot of work in the late game in Warrior Control, removing some pretty big taunt minions. And I think it's just a really well done card.
Yeah, I gave this a 5. This is one of the few 5s I gave, and it has not disappointed. And against something like Zoo or Token Druid, a 4-mana 4/5 is still really, really good. You don't have to have the battle cry. And the fact that it's a mech also means if you have Dr. Boom in play, Dr. Boom, the hero power, the hero card, he all of a sudden has rush. So to be able to do 10 damage and then rush in for 4 damage, yeah, this by bar none is one of the best cards in the set.
Yeah, this card is bonkers. I gave it a 4. I think I didn't think it would actually fit the decks, but when I was starting to theorycraft, it actually did. And yeah, I've seen it everywhere. It's a Yeti that blows up something big after turn 10. I love this card.
All right, our next epic is the Wrench Caliber. It's a 4-mana 3/2 weapon. After your hero attacks, shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. I gave this a 3 pretty much because of how prevalent I could see Bomb Warrior was going to be pre-release, because we voted all these pre-release, and I gave it a 3. Outside of Bomb Warrior, I just don't see this weapon getting used very much. I mean, people might run it just to put the bomb into the deck, but a 4-mana 3/2 weapon is just so. But yeah, so I gave it a 3.
Yeah, I gave this a 4 for the same reasons. I think Bomb Warrior is the real deal. I think it's prevalent. I think the reason you're seeing it get a little bit out of favor is because Archivist is being used to shut down a lot of these other decks, and that's more in a control warrior strategy. But in a meta that Bomb Warrior, that control warrior is not necessarily needed, especially on the ladder, Bomb Warrior is still a very, very good deck, and this card is sick.
Yeah, I gave it a 2. I think it's fringe. I think it only goes in Bomb Warrior. That's why I gave it a 2. It's basically a overcosted War Axe by 1, which you can give you 10 damage later. So yeah, I think it's solid. I don't think it's that great though. I don't think it's a 4 level.
All right, so that brings us up to our first rare, which is the Clockwork Goblin. It's a 3-mana 3/3 battle cry. Shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. When drawn, it explodes for 5 damage. This is a solid card all the way around. Even if you're not playing Bomb Warrior, it's still a 3-mana 3/3 with potential to do 5 additional bonus damage. I gave this card a 4.
Yeah, I gave this a 4 as well. I have played 6 of these in one game.
Oh, gross.
And didn't have any in my deck. I was playing Control Warrior at the time, because I kept finding it off of the Dr. Boom hero power and off my Omega assemblies. It's ridiculous. It turns Control Warrior into a Bomb Warrior. It's nuts. This card is so good.
Yeah, I gave it a 3 because all the 3s as well, and I think it's super solid. Yeah, the 3-mana 3/3 with the possibility to do 5 damage to the other guy's face later is pretty good.
All right, that brings us up to our next rare card, which is a warrior spell, Sweeping Strikes. 2 mana, give a minion, also damages minions next to whomever this attacks. I gave this a 2, and I'm gonna tell you why I gave it a 2 is because the first time I played this card at the pre-release, I misplayed the hell out of it, and I was like, "What the hell just happened?" Oh, okay.
Yeah, you did.
So yeah, I gave this card a 2.
Yeah, I gave it a 3. And a funny story, I used this in the pre-release to actually play it on someone else's minion, hit it with Super Collider, which then wiped out his entire board because the damage went outward, including the minion that I hit originally. So I don't think there's a deck for this yet, mainly because of Bomb and Control Warrior being so prevalent. But I think we get to a mid-range style warrior deck. I think this fits in. There are some shenanigans that can be done with it, especially with a was it batter head or batter ram, which we'll talk about later in the neutrals. I like this card. I just don't think there's a home for it yet.
I gave this card a 3 purely on the play of I saw Blister Guy in a pre-release, drop Akali the Rhino, throw this on it, hit something and kill 2 things. He then drew 3 rush minions from his deck with the buff. This card, including the situation that Zeroshio talked about, is kind of ridiculous. I think there's a lot of application for this card, and I think it's kind of being slept on a little bit right now. And yeah, it's this effect in Warrior has always been strong. So I'm kind of shocked it's not seeing any play.
All right, next up, Dimensional Ripper. It's the last of the rares, and it is a 10 mana spell. Summon 2 copies of a minion in your deck. I just feel like the legendary we talked about a minute ago, Boom Reaver. This is just too RNG for me. There's no idea what you're going to get at 10 mana. It's the only thing you can do that turn. So I don't like this card at all. I gave it a 1.
I gave this a 1 as well. I think it might be the worst card in the set.
I gave it a 1. It's like 10 mana, play 2 things that may or may not do anything on turn 10. It's bad.
All right, so on to the commons. First up, we have Improve Morale. It's a 1 mana spell. Deal 1 damage to a minion. If it survives, add a lackey to your hand. I gave this a 2. 1 mana to do 1 damage and add a lackey to your hand. The if it survives mechanic is a warrior staple. It's on a lot of warrior cards, so warriors should know how to best utilize that by now. And I just felt like this was a pretty okay card, so I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I gave it a 2 as well. I think it's a good card. I don't see a lot of need or use for lackeys in Warrior right now, or even in the near future. Maybe when further sets come out with new lackeys and new ways to get lackeys, Warrior will need this card more. But right now, it's just a 2. I think it goes in certain decks, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's a 2. I think, kind of same. It's like there's no reason for Warrior to play lackeys, like Zeroshio said. So it's like, I think if an aggressive Warrior shows up, that's an actual aggressive, like low to the floor aggressive Warrior, I think this goes in there because you do want the lackeys and you do want to trigger your like enrage effects, rip in that keyword. But yeah, I think this it's a solid. It's a really fringe card. It's a 2.
All right, next up, it's another warrior spell. 4 mana, worst scheme in the set. Gain 1 armor, upgrades each turn. I gave this a 1.
Yeah, I'm going to say this is tied for the worst scheme ever. I think it is really neck and neck between this one and a Reform scheme. So, yeah, I gave it a 1. It's bad.
I gave it a 1. Should still be a 1. There's some fringe case and specialists where you mulligan hard for this, and like, okay, you're in a fatigue mirror, and then all of a sudden you just burst out as for much armor as you can just to squeeze out a win before the turn timer ends. But I think this card is bad.
All right, and the last warrior card is a minion. It is the Vicious Scrap Hound. It's a 2-mana 2/2 mech. Whenever this minion deals damage, gain that much armor. I gave this little guy a 3 because he's a 2-mana 2/2 that gains you armor every time he deals damage, and him's just so cute. Look at that artwork.
So I give it a 2. I think it's a very good card. I just don't see it fitting in a good deck. Now, off a Discover mechanic, this is actually pretty sick because getting this with, say, a War Gear and being able to use the magnetic to buff up its stats and then rush with it is really, really powerful because you can get a bunch of armor really fast, even better than the Dr. Boom scheme. So I like it, especially in Discover, but to put it in a deck, it's a 2 for me.
Yeah, you don't put this in a deck. It's a 2 for me as well. The really gross play is when they Zilliax on this thing. So they heal for 5 and also gain 5 armor at the same time. It makes me want to vomit.
All right. So overall, what do you guys think about the warrior class, Zeroshio?
I think it's a 4. If we had to give one class a 5 rating and like picking one to be a 5, it might even be Warrior for me. But just based off of the cards they have, I'd give it a solid 4.
Yeah, I give this class, like in this current meta, a 5. In this set, a 4. This Warrior set completely builds off everything they got in Boomsday, and like just goes on top and just builds on top of it, and it made the basically a Boomsday Warrior like really, really strong. It's a solid 4 for me.
I'm gonna just say the same thing. Outside of Dimensional Ripper and Dr. Boom's scheme, I feel like most of the cards Warrior got in this set are going to be viable at some point. I like the Warrior cards. I feel like Warrior is the most fun it's been in a long time. And so overall, I'm giving the Warrior class a 4. So, all right. Well, that brings us to our final class of this Rise of Heroes review, the neutrals. So, for time's sake, I think we will see how many of these we can get through. We might skip some of the commons. We'll see.
Yeah.
First up, we have Chef Nomi. 7 mana, 6/6, battle cry. If your deck is empty, summon 6/6 Greasefire Elementals. This is where my son is going to disown me because this is one of his favorite cards in the entire set. Playing Fatigue Priest with Chef Nomi, but I gave it a 2.
Yeah, in your son's defense, he does play Hearthstone with kids in a school that are bad at the game. So he has a chance to really abuse this card.
Fired.
Oh, they're bad at the game. I've heard the stories. I gave it a 1. I think it's a meme card. Now, it's great Trollden Fire. Trollden's loving this card. But ultimately for a deck's win condition, I think this is just a 1. You can't rely on it.
Yeah, as long as Myra's exists, as long as Gesja and Auctioneer exists and cheap spells, and ability and ways to bring this back into your hand with either Shadow Step, with Seance, or with like Floops, or with Floop. This card,
Daring Escape.
Or Daring Escape as well. Oh, Daring Escape, you're going to get the 6/6 backs anyway. You don't want all those in your hand.
Yeah, good point.
So I think it's got some fringe viability. I've played a few games with it, and every game I've played with it, I've lost because I'm bad at the deck, and maybe the deck is bad. Who knows? Most likely it's the first. But yeah, it's a fringe card. I think it's considered a thought in anything that wants an empty deck.
All right. Next up, Geppetto Joybuzz.
Kill.
8 mana, 6/6, battle cry. draw 2 minions from your deck, set their attack, health, and cost to 1. We talked a lot about this card prior to the set release, about the hop that this card was getting as possibly one of the most popular cards in the set. I rated it a 3 because I was like, I just didn't see how it was going to play out. But having actually played this card now, I feel like I underrated it a little bit. Playing this in Malagos Hunter is just sick. Play this into double twin shot. Is it twin spell? Wait, what's the name of
Quick
the
shot.
card?
Quick shot.
It's the 1 mana, deal 1, twin spell, add 1 back to your hand. Rapid fire. Yeah. So you're talking 12 points of damage, with this guy. Well, no, actually it'd only be 6 because you got to pay 1 to play Malagos, but you get what I'm saying. It does a lot of damage. It can make you do a lot of damage really fast. So I like this card a lot, but I rated it a 3 at the time.
I gave this card a 4, and I stand by that. Right now, we're just seeing Malagos Hunter as the big abuser of this, and it's doing work. But I think there are tons of other decks out there that will abuse this card. Specifically, I'm working on a new version of Mecha'thun Warlock that utilizes this card. And I really think that once Control starts really taking control of the meta, people are going to desperately search for OTK decks, and they're going to look to Geppetto Joy Buzzkill to be that catalyst that allows OTK decks to come back. And then the meta will start writing itself again.
I think this card, I gave this card a 3. I think it's really solid, but I think this card is dangerous in a 6-set situation where we have 6 sets in standard, where the combo decks start to show up in mass. This card is going to be really strong.
All right, next up is the card everybody got for free, Archmage Vargoth. Archmage is a 4-mana 2/6. At the end of your turn, cast a spell you've cast this turn. Targets are random. I gave this card a 3. I kind of stick by it. He might as well say taunt because if he lives, and you don't do anything with him, he's more than likely going to die on your opponent's turn before you get to utilize him again. So, I gave this guy a 3.
Yeah, I gave him a 3, and he was really strong when he was given to us pre-rotation. And that was because they could abuse the cards that hadn't gone out of rotation yet. There are still some strong decks that use him, specifically Token Druid, but he's not quite as abused as he was back when Res Priest was a thing in Standard. So for that reason, I'm sticking by a 3 cost, or 3 rating on this.
I give this card a 4. I think it's the best neutral legendary in the set, and they gave it to us for free. The fact that this can completely break things with some really powerful spells. And when I was doing deck building, when I was rating the cards, and we got a chance to play with this, of course, early, I just found ways of just slotting him in to make some gross turns, just some really gross things to happen. I think this card is phenomenal. I gave it a 4. I stick by the 4.
All right, next up we have Archivist Elysiana. So this card is an 8-mana 7/7 battle cry. Discover 5 cards. Replace your deck with 2 copies of each. This card needs to die in a fire. But with that said, I gave it a 4 because of exactly the reasons it needs it. This card is single-handedly taking 9-hour Hearthstone tournaments and turning them into 13 and 14-hour Hearthstone tournaments.
15-hour
15-hour Hearthstone tournaments. Just because players are, and at 8 mana, they're playing her, bouncing her, playing her again. It's just shenanigans, and nobody really likes shenanigans. So, but with all that said, she is as advertised, and I think she well deserves the 4.
Yeah, I gave her a 2 because I think she would go in specific fringe decks. And truth, that is truthful. The fringe decks are the fatigue style decks. Unfortunately, it's what's kind of dragging the meta right now. People are really not enjoying playing against it because they have to go forever. And even though they might win that game, you had to play a 45-minute game just to win that game, sometimes longer. Knowing what I know now, I would probably give this a 6. And we save 6s for cards we believe are going to be nerfed. I think this will be nerfed to 9 mana specifically, so it can't be coupled with bounce effects, except in something like Rogue, which I don't think is nearly as abused as something like Warrior. But just off the card effect itself and not the meta impact as a whole, I think it is a 2.
Yeah, I gave it a 3, and I think I agree with you, Zeroshi. It should be a 6. I'm actually considering crafting this tonight because, the off chance it does either get banned or nerfed in some way. So yeah, I think this card there's a lot of talk around this card. I haven't seen it. Of course, then again, I haven't competed in a qualifier at all. So we'll see how this we'll see how this goes. I know the Coin Concede listener series has actually banned this card from their top 8. So.
On a side note, from an innkeeper's perspective, there has been a lot of talk in the innkeeper community about this card and how to handle it and how to handle events, and the community as a whole seems pretty split down the middle on just straight out banning this card the way Coin Concede listener did, or B, applying a hard, fast time limit rule to rounds. And if you don't finish in the time limit, that's just too bad. So that's kind of where the tournament organizers are at the moment, trying to figure out what might be the best way to work with this card. All right, moving on. Brings us to Barista Lynchen. She's a 5-mana, 4/5 Battlecry. Add a copy of each of your other Battlecry minions to your hand. I gave her a 3 just because I feel like there may be a place for her in a Battlecry heavy deck. I just don't know that deck exists right now. She's a 5-mana, 4/5. Stats are okay. I just felt like she's pretty middle of the road, so I gave her a 3.
I gave her a 3. She's a solid card. She's really close to a 4. There are decks I think that can abuse this ability, and I like her a lot. I had somebody that played this in a espionage rogue, and they played a bunch of their one-cost, espionage cards that they got from my class, and then tossed down Barista Lynchen to get a bunch of copies of those into their hand, and it wrecked me. And that's a fringe scenario, and that's a one-off situation. Before that, I think it's a good, solid card in any deck that uses battle cries effectively, and that's a lot of decks. And I think she is a good 3.
Yeah, she's a solid 3 for all the reasons said. I think she's just a good card, and she has a ton of value if you can get her to go off. That and her play sound is amazing.
All right, that brings us to the epics for the neutral class, and first up we have Unseen Saboteur. 6 mana, 5/6 battle cry. Your opponent casts a random spell from their hand targets chosen randomly. I love this card. 6 mana, 5/6 body is okay, but the fact that you can pull a random spell out of your opponent's hand and it could fireball their face, it could freeze a minion, it could destroy one of their minions. There are so many options available. This reminds me of the good old Dirty Rat days, and I like this card. I gave it a 4.
Yeah, I gave it a 4 as well. One thing also to remember is if the spell your opponent casts from this is a discover spell, then it automatically picks the choices. The opponent doesn't get the choice of what they want. I've also, in the meta right now, it's not really being a strong tech card because we're in a very minion-based meta. There's not a lot of spells, but I know against Summoner Mage, I actually got him to cast his Book of Specters when he had 9 cards in his hand, and he ended up burning some key pieces. I think it was a Mountain Giant and a Khadgar. So it was really useful in that case. So if you know the deck you're playing against, and once the meta gets more fleshed out, you will. This is a good inclusion in a deck.
Yeah, it's a solid tech card. I gave it a 2. I don't think everybody wants to play it, but I'm looking for the day like Trollden Clip where somebody plays this and so their opponent's hand gets Myrised or deck gets Myrised.
All right, so that brings us up to the next epic, which is the Batterhead. Is an 8 mana 3/12 rush. After this attacks and kills a minion, it may attack again. I gave it a 2. Maybe there's gonna be somewhere this might be used more regularly, but right now I just don't see it. I know there is a specific use we talked about earlier, and I'll let the guys talk about that. But I didn't care much for this card. I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I gave it a 1. I think it's really good off some Discover effects, especially off Conjurer's Calling and Mage. If you were to get this off of this against something like Zoo or Token Druid. But I think to put it in a deck, it's really a meme deck. I think it would be some kind of combo. There is a wild combo I've considered where you can flip it and kill a bunch of minions with the warrior spell that makes it attack its neighbors as well. So there might be something with that, but again, that would be a meme style deck, and I don't think it would have a high win rate. It's a 1.
Yeah, it's a 1. It's a 4/12 that is just can constantly attack. I did see it today in a big paladin that used what's that duel card that summon this card and then they fight and then you can attack with Batterhead that same turn. The rest of the board, but yeah, like I said, it's a meme inclusion. It's a 1.
All right, next up is the Big Bad Archmage, and he is a 10 mana 6/6. At the end of your turn, summon a random 6-cost minion. I gave this card a 1 for a lot of reasons. It's a 10 mana 6/6, but since I have rated this 1, I have seen this card summon freaking Sunwalkers back to back on me when I had no way to get rid of it, and it's a real pain in the butt if you can't get rid of it immediately. I still think it's a 1. It's not something I would include in a build, but if I found it off of a Discover, I might take it.
Yeah, I gave this a 2. I think it goes in specific decks, and when I rated this, I was thinking there's got to be some way it maybe not a tier 1 deck, possibly a bottom tier 2 deck, or even tier 3 that's countering a specific type of deck. One card this works really well with in their drinking buddies is Muckmorpher in Shaman. I've seen a couple decks out there that have one copy of Big Bad Archmage in the deck, and they run Muck Morpher. Muck Morpher goes into play. It randomly copies the Big Bad Archmage, and then all of a sudden you get a 6 cost as well. So it's really, I think it has a home in specific niche decks, and that's why I give it a 2.
I gave it a 1. It's a 6-drop that summons another 6-drop, but it's also 10 mana. That's basically my main feeling with this. I think the 6-drop, 6 mana cards are not great, and that's why I kind of gave it a 1.
All right. Next up, we have the Hinch Clan Hag. 4 mana, 3/3 Battle Cry. Summon 2 1/1 amalgams with all minion types. I gave this a 3 just because it's a 4 mana 3/3 that summons 2 additional minions that are all minion types. So it's like a 4 mana 5/5 that counts for everything. So yeah, I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 2. I think there are other minions at lower cost and that put 2 extra bodies out that fit into those zoo style, aggro style decks better than this card. And I don't think the amalgams having all minion types benefits enough in enough decks for it to really matter.
Yeah, I gave it a 3. I think I overrated it a little bit. I think it's a solid 2. There's other cards that do this cheaper, and the minion types really don't matter that much.
All right, so next up we have Whirlwind Tempest. It's an 8 mana 6/6 that says your minions with Wind Fury have Mega Wind Fury. I rated this a 2. I just felt like it costs too much to be useful that late in the game. The one thing I felt like it had going for it was that it was an elemental body type. So maybe there might be some world where, you might could find a use for this, or discover this in a shaman deck and be able to make use of that Mega Wind Fury. But right now I don't see it. I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 1. It's a meme card. I have thought of a deck with this, and it would be fun to play, but it's purely for the memes.
I gave it a 3, and I don't know why. It should have been a 1. I must have fat fingered it or something.
All right.
Well, you were adding up mine and Avanti's score.
That was it. Yeah, that had to be it. I saw the 3, and I'm like, what?
Next up is the Portal Overfiend. 6 mana 5/6 Battle Cry. Shuffle 3 portals into your deck. When drawn, summon a 2/2 demon with Rush. I like this card. I think this card will have... I think you can have some fun with this card. It's a 6 mana 5/6 body, so it's okay, but you also have the potential to draw into 3 additional 2/2 demons with Rush. Warlock can do a lot with this. They can buff those demons. They can draw into them faster. I gave this card a 4. I like it.
I gave it a 2. At the time, I was rating this like a worse Faldorei Strider, like a power creep on Faldor, a reverse power creep on Faldorei Strider. It might be a solid 3 now that I've seen it being played, but it really hasn't hit its stride. The plot twist deck that people are trying it in, it hasn't really hit its stride, but I think it's because Zoo's so good right now.
Yeah, I gave this card a 3. I love both of these portal demons. I think they're a lot of. I think the mechanic is cool. I loved playing with them. I don't think they'll see much play after this week, but I think it was a solid card. It's a good 3.
All right, next up, for those of you who have been playing World of Warcraft, you will know how much of a pain in the butt Azurite is. Well, it carries over into Hearthstone because the Azurite Elemental is a 5-mana 2/7 at the start of your turn, gain spell damage +2. I don't like this card. It's a 5-mana 2/7. It is an elemental, so again, maybe somewhere this will find use in the future, but right now I just don't think it's very good. I gave it a 2.
I broke the rules and gave this a 0. This is a really bad card. I think if it had spell damage out the gate and then gained an additional spell damage at the start of your turn, maybe there's some place for it. But at 5-mana 2/7, that will give you spell damage if it survives. This is a bad card.
Yeah, this card's bad. It's a 1. It's like literally just, it's like I would rather play the guy that gets. I'd rather play the basic card with the same stat line than the card.
I just want to point out at the time of this recording, I'm also watching Dyrus Bear's fundraising live stream, and he literally just cast Azurite Elemental on the board as we were talking about it.
out of his hand. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's bad.
All right.
If anybody's going to find ways to play bad cards, it's going to be Doug.
All right. And our last epic of the neutral set is the Magic Carpet. It's a 3-mana 1/6 minion. After you play a 1-cost minion, give it +1 attack and rush. I gave this a 2. It's a 3-mana 1/6, which is good, but I just don't see it fitting in. Maybe you put this in like a zoo to give your minions you play +1 attack and rush, but right now I've not seen it used a whole lot, so I'm going to stick with my 2.
I gave this a 2. I was wrong. I was horribly, horribly wrong. This is clearly a 4 rated card. It's dominating in zoo decks. I've seen some people test it in Token Druid. It's really good. I know a lot of people were down on it saying you had to play the 1 cost. It doesn't count for summons. But that doesn't matter, especially with lackeys and demons. It's sick. And having a Flame Imp come up as a 4/2 charge for 1 mana, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I gave this a 2 as well, and it's a 4. It's super solid. I just want to build Mr. Hobgoblin's Wild Magic Carpet right now.
Nice. All right. First up for the rares, we have the Spellward Jeweler. It's a 3-mana 3/4 battle cry. Your hero can't be targeted by spells or hero powers until next turn. I gave this a 3, mostly because it's a 3-mana 3/4 body, and it makes you untargetable. I mean, that just says it all. So I felt like this was a pretty decent card. Gave it a 3.
I gave it a 2 just off stats alone. I don't think the battle cry is really worth anything.
Yeah, I gave it a 2. It's fringe. If Freeze Mage ever decides to come back, I think this card might be strong. But who knows if Freeze Mage will ever come back.
All right, next up we have the Hecklebot. 4-mana, 3/8, taunt, battle cry. Your opponent summons a minion from their deck. I gave this a 2. As Zeroshio just admitted on the Flying Carpet, I was wrong. I was horribly, horribly wrong. I feel like this should probably be a 4 or maybe even a 5. You're going to see this card played a lot at Worlds. We talked about it earlier, being in a lot of decks. I'm sorry, Hecklebot. I apologize.
Yeah, I gave this a 3, and it could maybe be a 4. In a meta where Archivist is, prevalent, it's definitely a 4. And right now we're in that meta. So to try to snag somebody's Archivist so that it steals their fatigue style game. Hecklebot's a must include. So I still stick by a solid 3, but right now you definitely want to put this in your decks.
This is a solid 3. I think it really goes into like any like control style setting. The fact that it's a mech is very relevant because if you are a warrior, you can discover this. Omega Assembly can draw you this card. You can actually, So I think the 3 it's worse than Death Lord, but it's actually but I think the effect is a little more immediate, and I think this is pretty solid.
All right, next up we have the Exotic Mount Seller. It's a 7-mana 5/8. Whenever you cast a spell, summon a random 3-cost beast. I like this card. Again, I like being able to get value out of my cards. So, you play this, you play a couple of cheap minions, you summon a couple of 3-cost beasts. You can fill your board up pretty quickly. I gave this card a 3.
I actually gave this a 3. This is really good. So there's some really good 3-cost beasts, and I've actually been toying with this card in a Secret Paladin because Secret Paladin is really hurting on card draw. But what this does is it's kind of like card draw in the sense that you're getting additional minions on the board that you weren't planning for. So I like it. I like it a lot. It's not like overpowered or anything. And at 7 mana, it's hard to fit anything else in with it that same turn. But it's a good 3.
Yeah, I gave it a 2. I think it's fringe. It's really expensive. Yeah, you can high roll your pants off with Mukla. But I think, also, no, it also is 3 mana? Harambe. That's so, it's one of those.
That's right.
It's a limited pool, but it's one of those.
Mukla. Yep.
It's one of those. Yeah, it's not there yet, and it's way too expensive for the decks that want to use it.
All right, next up is Underbelly Ooze. 7 mana, 3/5 minion. After this minion survives damage, summon a copy of it. So after it survives damage, summon a copy of it. I feel like that is the most important thing about this card because if it takes 3 points of damage, it's going to summon a 3/2 because you're summoning a copy of the minion, and you're not going to get another 3/5. You're going to get a 3/2. So I actually don't care much for this card. I feel like it's way too expensive. I gave it a 2.
I think there could be a deck that utilizes damaging your minions that this might be okay in. But yeah, it retains the damage on it, so it's not as good as something like a Grim Patron. And at 7 mana, it's just too cumbersome. I gave it a 2.
I don't know I don't know why I gave this a 3. It should have been a 1. I think this card is a 7 mana patron with diminishing returns, and I think it's just not good enough to do anything other than show up in a random pool.
All right, next up you have Tunnel Blaster. It's a 7 mana 3/7 with Taunt, Death Rattle, deal 3 damage to all minions. I gave this a 3. 7 mana is a little bit expensive, but you're getting a 7 health taunt minion that when it dies is a 3 damage board clear or board damage. I like this card. As I said, I gave it a 3.
Yeah, I like this card as well. I gave it a 3 as well because I think it's solid. One thing to note is 7 tends to be bad in summoning, but remember this if you're facing against, say, an aggro deck like Token Druid or Zoo, and you're playing Conjurers calling on a 7-cost minion, because you might actually get this, and it could save you the game.
Yeah, I give this a solid 3. This has actually really been solid in against Token Druid for me, because it clears their Wisp board, and it also clears the tokens left around from the Soul of the Forest. So I think this card is super solid.
All right, next up we have Recurring Villain. This is a 5 mana 3/6 Death Rattle. If this minion has 4 or more attack, resummon it. So I actually gave this card a 2. And I'm probably going to stick with my 2, but I saw this card played the other night in Buff Paladin, and oh my god, was it ever the most annoying thing I have ever seen. It came back every single turn. And I just went, okay, not going to try to remove it, just going to go around him. You know, there were a couple of times he was able to give him taunt. I had to remove him, but beyond that, just ignore this guy as much as possible. But I gave him a 2.
I gave him a 2 as well, and I'm going to stick by it, but there are some shenanigans to be had with this. I faced this in arena, and somebody, crazed alchemist, flipped it, killed one of my big minions, and then brought it right back. So this is it has a place. It can be annoying, but I think it's fringe.
Yeah, I think it's a solid fringe card. It has some fun stuff to do with the Undertaker and Paladin buffs and some priest buffs possibly, but I don't see it sticking around.
All right, next up we have the Portal Keeper, the little brother to the Portal Overfiend. This is a 4-mana 5/2 with the exact same ability. Shuffle 3 portals into your deck. When drawn, summon a 2/2 demon with Rush. Like Matt said earlier, I also like both of these portal cards. I gave this guy a 3.
Yeah, I gave it a 2. It's definitely worse than the other portal card because of the body alone. And I think it is a solid 2, but obviously if you're playing it in that kind of deck, it's probably a 3 as well. So I'm kind of on the fringe of that, but I'll stick with my 2.
Yeah, I gave it a 2 as well. I think it's the 5/2 stats are really awkward, but sometimes the 5/2 does stick around, and you can dome somebody in the face for 5. It's pretty solid, but yeah, it's a 2. It's actually was the first one of the 2 I cut in my plot twist block.
Okay. Next up, we have the Sunreaver War Mage. This is a 5-mana 4/4 battle cry. If you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, deal 4 damage. I gave this a 3. Honestly, it's probably a little better than that. I probably could see rating this a 4. 5 mana for 4/4s, okay. Outside of Big Spell Mage or in Wild, I could see this card being super good in Wild, but in Standard right now, you're limited on your 5 cost or more spells, so I just gave it a 3.
I gave it a 4. And remember, this 4 damage can go to face. It's really strong. And Arcane Dynamo is still in Standard. And Arcane Dynamo just discovers a 5 or more cost card. Now, obviously, you may not want to put that in your deck, but if you're playing a minion-heavy mid-range deck, maybe you do. I have seen somebody put this in a rogue deck where they were running sprints with preps and put down Spear of the Shark and dome me in the face for 8 damage to get lethal. So along with Eviscerate. So yeah, this card's for real.
Yeah, this is probably the best neutral minion in the set. It's super solid. It has a lot of future ability too. The fact that it can go face is huge. I didn't even realize it went face until I started playing with the card. I still gave it a 4. I think it's still a solid 4. Anything that runs anything big spell related is going to consider this card.
All right, next up you have the Mad Summoner. 6 mana 4/4 battle cry. Fill each player's board with 1/1 imps. We kind of touched on this earlier in the Warlock class. There's some combinations to be had here with other cards. But if you're not doing that, it's just a 6 mana 4/4 that fills both players' boards with 1/1s. I don't think it's that great. I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I gave it a 1. A lot of people were coming out with well, you could do this and combo with this minion, but you fail to remember it fills your board up. So when you play this, you can't play another minion to couple him with, to combo with. So you have to combo with a spell or have put the other minion out first. It's bad.
Oh, sorry. Lower Thunder. Yeah, I gave it a 2. It's fringe. It's disruption for, I think, Big Priest and Wild more than anything. And it's still bad.
All right, and our last rare of the set is Arcane Watcher. It's a 3-mana, 5/6, can't attack unless you have spell damage. So I initially gave this a 2 during pre the release of the set. This card is actually seeing quite a bit more play than I thought it would in a variety of decks where people are running silence effects, whether it be the Spell Mage or the Hoot Hoot. This guy is seeing quite a bit more play. Silence Priest, he does some serious work. So I feel like he might possibly be a 3, but I rated him a 2.
I rated him a 2. I was wrong. I think he's a 4. He has gotten me so many stars in Silence Priest. Awesome card.
Yeah, this card is a solid 3. It goes only really goes in Silence Priest and maybe Handlock because you can throw up a Sun Fury Protector behind it. But yeah, it's this dude's a monster, and spell damage is all over this set too. So you can possibly attack without even being silenced as well. So.
And I've seen this in a spell damage centric mage. It was like a mid range mage with lots of low cost damage spells and board clears, and it got this out and just protected it and kept those spell damages out and just kept hitting you in the face for 5.
All right. Well, I believe that's going to wrap it up. Real quick, do you guys let's each pick one common neutral card that we like out of the set, and talk about it. Zeroshio, we'll start with you.
I'm going to steal everybody's thunder because I see everybody rated this high. I gave it a 4. Sunreaver Spy. If Secret Paladin can become a thing and find a way to get more card draw in there somehow, this card is awesome. And I even think that it could get back into a tempo mage if mage decided to do that utilizes secrets more often. It is an awesome card.
All right, for me.
Yep.
I am going to select a card I severely underrated. Evil Cable Rat. 1 mana, 2 mana, 1/1, Battlecry, add a lackey to your hand. It's a beast. I thought this card was like, okay, this would be like the last lackey card you actually put in a deck, but I've seen it show up in Zoo, I've seen it show up in Token Druid, I've seen it show up in Rogue. This card is unassuming, but the lackeys are that strong that you'd run a 2 mana, 1/1.
Yep. I'm going to take a card that I rated a 4, and that is Toxfin. It's a 1 mana, 1/2 Battlecry. Give a friendly Murloc poisonous. At 1 mana, this card does so much work. It's quite possibly one of the best Murlocs since War Commander or whatever, War Leader, whatever it's called. I love this card a lot. I felt like it was really, really well done. So, all right, that's going to do it for our Rise of Shadows card review. If you guys have listened to all 3 weeks of the card review, we greatly appreciate it. Let us know what you thought. Send us an email, tweet at us. Just let us know your thoughts. Huge shout out to Ben Hearthstone for shouting us out last week on Twitter. We greatly appreciated it, sir. And we just hope we are doing justice to the card reviews for all of you guys who are tuning in every week. So,
and a reminder to our listeners, next week we will start back to our play portion. So if you just listen to us on iTunes or while you're driving, the first half of the show will be the same. We're going to talk about news, talk about decks like normal, and then a second half of the show you can find on our YouTube channel at ECMMO Gamers or on our website heropowerhs.com, where we upload the show every week, where you can watch the play portion, the second half, where you can watch us play new meta decks live every week. If you have an idea for a deck, please send it to us on Twitter at HeroPower_cast, or you can email it to us at HeroPowerPodcast@gmail.com.
Alrighty. Well, that's going to do it. So if any of you have any questions or comments about the show, as the Rose Show just said, email us at HeroPowerPodcast@gmail.com. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube or give us a follow on Twitch to be alerted when we go live. For more details about our patron-only Discord, head over to patreon.com/HeroPower. That's going to do it.
Don't forget to use your hero power.